Good afternoon, YouTube. This is Tyler Metalhead Weatherman. Hopefully, you guys are doing well. So, one thing that's been going on in the midst of what you would call, I guess, Superstorm Diaz, as much as you want to call it Winter Storm Diaz, there's been something that's kind of not necessarily slipped under my radar, but there was just no chance for me to make any videos simply due to the fact that I've been having my hands full covering both the severe weather and the wintry side of Winter Storm Diaz. So, we're going to talk about that today. So, let's go ahead before we get into it, and we're going to talk about what's still going on thanks to Diaz right now. Still have snow ongoing over towards the Midwest, towards the northern tier of the Midwest. Still plenty of snow falling there. Some snowfall even occurring over towards Chicago as well. And heavy snow is occurring over towards the northeast too. We have areas just outside of New York City having concerns about heavy snow. In fact, there was a meso discussion that was issued just a little less than an hour ago. On the severe side of things, we've definitely begun to wane. Only one tornado report today, 2 wind reports, all of those in Florida. But nonetheless, that tornado watch actually got allowed to expire. That's great news. But there's still an abundance of winter storm, ice storm, and winter weather advisories and warnings, watches, etc. Still blizzard warnings in effect too over towards the Dakotas here, and these have actually expanded a bit to the east. I mentioned in one of the previous videos that the wind was going to increase with this system as time went on, and we've begun to see that. So blizzard warnings have been extended in a lot of areas. And one thing I want to make a reminder of before I get into the meat of this video is with blizzard conditions, you don't necessarily have to have snow falling. The snow can just be blown around from the wind and reduce visibility for a set period of time in order for it to qualify as a blizzard. You just need to have a sufficient amount of snow. But that being said, let's go ahead and get into the real topic, and that is the cold air that is going to be coming in the next 6 to 10 days. Oh my goodness, I have never seen anything like this. When I looked at this earlier, you should have seen how big my eyes had gotten, because this right here, this is rare. You don't see this often. So this is the climate. This is from the Climate Prediction Center right here, right? And you've seen me on this map when I do my monthly outlooks. The red indicates areas that are expected to see above average temperatures, and the darker the shade of color, or brighter the shade of color in some instances, the greater the confidence. And the same can be said for colder than average temperatures. The darker the shade of blue, the greater confidence that there is for below average temperatures. Okay, so look, so usually we'll see this shade right here. We're getting up to about 60, between 60-70%. That's pretty rare. It's not common, I'll put it that way. But when you get to about 70 and 80%, that's when you really start to pay attention. But this area, I'd almost even say that they're talking about 90 to 100% confidence that we are going to see below average temperatures. I will show you just exactly what we're looking at here. And there will be storm systems going through some of these areas too. So there could be some big time snowstorms on the way. Even for places that may not be used to snow, especially during this time of year. So it's absolutely insane to think that we're at this point in December and we could be talking about some places like Atlanta, Georgia, seeing single-digit temperatures for lows. It's just hard to believe. So before we get into that, of course, let's go ahead and actually take a look at the vorticity here. And it's interesting to see this right now because we're looking at our current storm system here. I don't have this set in a loop mode. Why I didn't, I will never know. But anyway, here's our current storm system right here. There's a good bit of cold air in behind it. You can see this cold air and energy starting to wrap around here, which is causing more snow, more wind to funnel into these regions here. And as we move this along, we watch this spin in a counterclockwise direction off to the east. and there's still energy feeding in behind this. And this is from what's called a polar lobe. I'll get into more on that in another video, but simply put, there is some very deep Arctic, maybe almost I would say some polar-esque air involved in this as well. So this comes in over the Great Lakes. We get our heavy snow event there once we get towards Friday and Saturday, and then this becomes a much bigger event as we go towards the northeast, especially towards the mountain ranges. So once we get this system to move out, this next system, here's what I want you to really watch closely. You can see kind of where our jet stream is right here. It's where a lot of our cold air is stationed up, but the extra focus I want you to have here is towards these isobars. Look at how tightly packed they are together. It's a lot of cold air stacking on top of itself. And eventually this is going to have to go somewhere. And watch what happens as I move this forward. If I can get it to move forward. Okay, there we go. Starting to move, finally. But watch what happens as we move this forward. This cold air starts to stack up here. Right around the 21st, we get a brief little period of warm up, and then, oh boy, we'll keep on freezing. This computer just cannot handle this anymore. So here we are looking now on the 22nd. Look at where the cold air is starting to push. This is our cold air right here. It's a big surge of it. Watch how this just becomes a huge trough and just digs and digs and digs and digs. Now, the Euro looks a little different from the GFS, I will say that. But look how far this cold air started to dig in now, though. This is us looking towards the 23rd, and we have below freezing temperatures all the way towards the Atlantic coast here, towards North Carolina, and even parts of South Carolina getting involved here. We move this along, and while the Euro has a slightly warmer solution than the GFS, we're still expecting record cold to be occurring over the eastern half of the country here, which is crazy. But if you think that's crazy, let's take a look at the GFS. The GFS is what's really going to have your jaw dropped, so to speak. So here we are looking at the GFS now. For the most part, we're looking at almost the exact same setup as we are the Euro at this moment. We'll move this along here, and we'll go ahead and just run all the way to the 21st. And this is where our cold air starts to kick in here, so to speak. See the tightening of these isobars right here. GFS is a boatload colder right now. And look how far, and this trough digs a lot further south. And I mean a lot further. It's also a little bit further behind too. So move this along, and look what happens here. This almost looks like a big snowstorm that pops up for the southeast. If I remember correctly, this is a Miller A route snowstorm. So this could include some parts like even Birmingham, Atlanta, maybe even Charleston could see snow, which is unbelievable to think about. Of course, let's not jump on this bandwagon too quickly, because we are still about 8 to 9 days out at this point. So a lot can still change with this. But the fact that we are looking at this before Christmas is unbelievable. Then another trough comes in right behind it. And this is just right around the time of Christmas. And we have yet another big system that might be a snow producer towards the northeast, the Ohio Valley, maybe even the Tennessee Valley too. And then from beyond that, it's pretty much hearsay what happens next. But looks like we'll start to warm back up towards the end of this year, and we may see a handful of snow events, but it finally looks like our severe weather threat is going to dwindle a bit, thankfully, as well. Let's go ahead and actually take a look at what our height anomaly looks like, because that's something that I'm pretty sure that would interest a lot of you. This just shows the density of the cold air and just how rich that cold air actually is. So we're closing some stuff out here and there, trying to see if there's any way I can make this computer work a little bit better. And it looks like I'm having a little trouble. So we'll roll this back about to where we are right now. We're a little bit behind, actually. So here's our current storm system. It's about current time, maybe about 36 hours out. Oh, went too fast. So this is what we're looking at coming into the 21st. And here comes that big surge of cold air, and it really starts to deepen according to the GFS by the 23rd. And look how deep that cold air is. Some areas we could be looking at in the upper levels of the atmosphere 36 degrees or lower than average. It could be more than 36 degrees below average. But this is a huge storm system. Do I think this is what's going to occur? I'm not too sure. But if it is, then oh my goodness. But even so, the euro doesn't look that much different. That's one thing I want to make note of. This huge bowling ball here looks like it very well be heading could very well be identical in regards to the euro. So here's a big bowling ball in its own right with Winter Storm Alex right now. We're moving that along. And then here comes our big storm right here that's going to kick in around the 21st. So that cold air gets elongated and stretched out. And then this next surge just comes in and bam, look at that. While this ends up being a little bit further north of what the GFS is doing, it's not by much. Any sort of moisture that makes contact with this is more than likely going to end up being frozen precipitation. I can almost guarantee it, especially anywhere in this region here. That being said, we could also, not only are we on the lookout for extreme cold, we can also be on the lookout for some wintry weather as well, especially throughout this region as well. But that's just unbelievable to see this. And this is 10 days out. That's one other thing to note here. And this cold air lingers until around for Christmas too. So any areas that may get snow, you may have to be dealing with it leading up to Christmas. So some areas around here, somebody might get lucky and have a white Christmas here that isn't used to getting white Christmases. Somewhere around here at the very least. I'm not ruling you guys out here either not having a white Christmas. I think you guys could. So that being said, let's go ahead and actually take a look at what our weather models will look like, and then our temperature anomalies as well. Actually, we're just going to go ahead and look at the temperature anomalies first. The second I saw this most recent run, I was just like, okay, as soon as I get home from work, I'm gonna have to cover this here. I was kind of excited to talk about it because I've been wanting to talk about it for a while. But it's kind of more refreshing to talk about it considering the fact that we're now looking at now we have two models to look at it from. Okay, so here's a temperature anomaly right now. This is looking at the euro. Oops. We'll roll this along here. And towards the 19th, we have a small little pop-up of areas that are about 10 to 15 degrees below average towards the east. But this is the big daddy right here. We're looking at about 20 to 30 degrees below average at the beginning of next week. And then towards midweek, that's when we have to be concerned about this right here. Even over towards Canada, we're looking at temperatures 42 degrees below average, which is nuts. That is crazy to think about. Then there's plenty of other areas where there could even be like 50 degrees below average just north of the border. So let's roll this along and we'll watch this deepen as we start to push towards the 21st and beyond. Look at that. Some areas up north of the border even hitting 55 degrees below or even colder, which is crazy to think about. And then by this point, this cold air has started to work its way into the country. We have places in Montana almost 50 below average. And then we'll move this further along. And then, boom, here we are in the southeast. 30 degrees below average, 40 degrees below average towards the Midwest. And this cold air link just sits here and lingers. Plenty of areas looking like they're about 25 to 30 degrees below average towards the southeast. Over towards the mountains in the mid-Atlantic, we could be seeing 30 degrees easily below average. And for some of these guys, this will mean single-digit temperatures as well, which is nuts. And this, like I said, this lingers around until Christmas. If there's any areas that might be okay, it might be towards the west. But this might also lend itself to an active pattern here. So it'll be interesting to see how things kind of progress with this. We did see a couple of storm systems come through here, but it looks like things are quieting down just a little bit right now. It's still hard to say. With areas like this, there's still going to be a clash of air masses somewhere around here. So thunderstorms or just unsettled weather is a possibility. Now let's make our comparison to the GFS here, and we'll look at our temperature anomaly there. Now we saw what we did with the Euro. You can only imagine what we're going to see here. So here we are looking at the 20th. GFS is a lot colder already. We're already seeing some areas where we're looking at about 10 to 15 below average already in these regions. And this is ahead of that system. We look here, we're getting into the 20s, 30s, 40s, similar deal. And we're going to probably see some really bright colors come in within the next few frames. This is 78 hours out. We get to 102 hours out. This is when those bright magenta colors really start to come in here. And when we get towards the 22nd and 23rd, look at that. It's almost like a tidal wave of cold air just comes in. And when we get towards the 23rd, just look at that. It's almost just like it just digs in and makes itself at home just in time for Christmas. So if you're seeing this now, while I'm not saying that you should clean off all the milk and bread on the shelves, maybe it might be a good time to get a little bit of firewood, maybe a loaf of bread or two starting out. You don't have to clean out the shelves. Everybody can still have what they need if you don't panic. You have plenty of time to prepare now. I'm not saying that this is guaranteed, but there is sufficient confidence in this. And then the same can be said when we go towards Christmas Eve and then Christmas Day. We're still in this situation where we have extreme below average temperatures, and this is going to linger almost all the way into the new year here. It isn't really until the 31st where everyone will start to warm up. And even then, there's still going to be pockets where it's going to be below average for some of us over towards the southeast. So all I can say at this point really is just brace yourselves. That being said, let's go ahead and actually take a look at what our precipitation could very well look like here. I'm going to roll this back and actually take a look at the Euro really quickly. So here we are looking at our precip map, and here's our current snowstorm. We already know the situation with this. Roll this along, leading into the 20th, and here comes our frigid air starting to come in at this point. There is a area of low pressure that's associated with this as well, and look at how far that 540 line starts to sneak down towards the south, towards the 22nd, into the 23rd. Look at what we got here. We get some rain and snow showers almost as far south as North Georgia here. We have Tennessee Valley involved in this as well. We have the Virginias involved. A lot of the Mid-Atlantic gets involved in this here. And here's another interesting player here is this little piece of energy right here that pops up. So on the back side of this, you can get snow, right? And this originates in Florida as well, so there's a pretty good amount of moisture that pops up. And on the backs, and this also, if it meets up with that cold air, this could be a bigger snow event that stretches further south too. So this is definitely going to have to be something I'm watching really closely. This could be something historic. In fact, I think I saw something about this being potentially the coldest Christmas in the last 40 years. So don't mess around with this. we have no idea what could happen here. And then there's almost another piece of energy that pops up here, which is kind of crazy. So this could bring in some lingering snow for the southeast, maybe even around the South Carolina region, North Carolina as well, even towards the coast. So this is going to be crazy. In fact, yesterday when I saw a model run on this, as I'm going over to the GFS now, I think I even saw a model run where there was snow in the Gulf of Mexico. I don't think I've ever seen that. If I have seen it, it's been a long time. It's been a long time ago, but still, that just shows how rare this setup is. You don't see this often. You really don't. And when we look at the GFS, of course, cold air gets in a little bit later. Timing of the system's a little bit more questionable, but if anything, it might be a little bit more ideal for a snowstorm for the southeast. Because look where that low is, and look at where that cold air is. Parts of northern Louisiana are likely to get snow too, if this setup comes into fruition. When we move this along, and this looks like moderate to heavy snow could be possible even as far south as central Georgia here, and even parts of the Florida Panhandle. Could also be an ice storm towards the central part of the Carolinas. And then this moves along and becomes a huge winter storm, huge nor'easter off the coast of the mid-Atlantic in the northeast here. New York City, you have to be watching this very closely. And then there's another system that tries to sneak its way in. This looks almost like an Alberta Clipper. And it may very well bring in some snow towards the southeast again. And this is heading towards the day after Christmas. This could even result in an ice storm over towards areas like Savannah and areas like Savannah, Augusta. We'll have to watch you guys really closely as well. And then this turns into yet another nor'easter. Again, one thing I want to note is that these events are still very far out, but it's just crazy to see this. Like this could be something for the record books here. But that being said, once we get towards the 29th, things look like they start to level off just a tiny bit. And then as we get towards the new year, looks like we get into a little bit more of a stable pattern. Although storm systems still will be rolling through, and we'll just have to see what happens next with this. But that's the end of this video here. It was a lot to cover. Once again, poor old me. I probably won't be getting any breaks for a while here. But I love doing this anyway, so it's not all that bad. But appreciate you guys for supporting this channel. It's been a great year for us so far. Let's finish it out strong. I wouldn't mind maybe getting up to 150 subs by the end of the year. You guys have already more than surpassed my expectations. I figured I'd be lucky to get to 50, let alone 100 or 139 right now. So thank you for that. Definitely spread the word about this as we get closer to the event, because I think for sure somebody is going to end up catching a big winter storm from this setup, regardless of whether it's the scenario highlighted by the Euro or the GFS. So just prepare in light to moderate succession if you're gonna start preparing now. Don't don't take your arm and go take all the loaves of bread into your shopping cart. Don't do that, because there's still a chance that this may go the other way. But anyway, appreciate you guys again for watching. This has been Tired Metalhead Weatherman. I'll see you guys in the morning video. Till then, you take care.